Welcome to Our Highest Work, a podcast where we are gathering and sharing the best ideas for spiritually based success. My name is George Cao, and in today's episode, we continue our series on spirituality. So, the topic of spirituality is, I believe, the most important topic that a human being can address in this life. And the reason why I believe it's so important is because when we clarify what our relationship is to spirituality, when we clarify our understanding of what the spiritual world is about and how it relates to the physical world, it can change everything about our purpose in life. For example, if you believe that this is the only life, that we die after our body dies and our consciousness is extinguished and there's nothing more, then what is there to stop you from doing all the things that are cheating and stealing and basically doing whatever you need to get your way for your body's comfort? Yes, your conscience might battle you on that one a little bit, but you can also overcome that. You can close your ears. You can close your inner eyes and your inner ears to the voice of your conscience. And some people have done that and live a life where they just care about the sustaining and thriving of their body. And but what if this is not the only physical life? What if after this body dies, we go on and experience more? All of the world's religions and spiritual traditions seems to tell that to us, that this is not it, that this is not the only life, that this is not the only consciousness that we have here in this body. And if that's the case, then wouldn't it make sense for us to study, to experience, to learn, to grow, so that we get clearer and clearer about what is the truth outside of what the mainstream media tells us. Here in America, well, I listen to NPR, National Public Radio, but just most radio stations, most televisions assume that this is the only life, that our body dies and that's it. And because of that, again, what happens with that is you do everything you can to secure a good life for this body, and that's it. Helping other people, do it only if it helps you, right? So, and if you don't have time to help other people, why should you help other people? It doesn't come back to you, right, most of the time. This is why we're talking about spirituality, because if we want to live a life that is true with a capital T, where we're not going to regret it at the end of our life and perhaps in the next life, we need to get clear as soon as we can about a relationship to spirituality. So let me begin with today's quote. Today's quote is from a book called A Soul's Journey. It's a book I really enjoyed. It can be downloaded for free, actually. You can just go to Google and search A Soul's Journey Facebook. If you do that, you'll find the Facebook fan page, and there's a book. There's a link to download the book for free. And this is a quote from the book. One day, one of Buddha's disciples came to him and said, "Teacher, whom shall I believe? One man tells me this, and another tells me that, and both seem so sure that they are right." Buddha replied, "My son, believe not that which any man says, not even I, the Buddha, unless it appeals to your common sense. And even then, do not believe it, but treat it as a reasonable hypothesis until such time as you can prove it for yourself." I wanted to start with the episode with that quote because that is what I encourage you to do with everything I say. Not just about spirituality, of course, but about everything, about marketing, about mindful activism, about right livelihood. Treat everything I say and anyone else says as a possible hypothesis if it makes sense to you, and then live and experiment until you can prove whether something that seems to make sense to you is right or wrong. And my belief about spirituality is that true reality is like a puzzle. It's like a gigantic puzzle. And you have a puzzle piece to this gigantic puzzle. And I have a puzzle piece. And every day, every person you're going to talk to today has a piece of the puzzle. And every person you're going to interact with for the rest of your life, every book that you read has a piece of the puzzle. Now, some pieces of the puzzle may be larger than other pieces, especially if somebody has talked with a lot more people, has read a lot more books, has experienced a lot more of life. They have gathered a lot more puzzle pieces, and their words, their thoughts may be more worth listening to, right? Some people have experienced very little of life and have studied very little and have tried very few things, and they only have a few puzzle pieces. But still, they have some puzzle pieces that other people don't have. So my belief is that we need to gather more puzzle pieces to understand the truth of this reality. And that's why I invite you to share your story with us, with this community called Our Highest Work. Share any experience of spirituality that you've had that cannot be explained away by mainstream science. Share with us what books have touched you so deeply that it has changed your spiritual path. Share with us what teacher you've learned from that has made a real big difference, a positive difference in your life. And you can share that with us by going to the comments page of this episode. And what I prefer you to do is to find our Facebook comments thread for this episode and share it there, because that way other people in the community will actually see it. If you share it just in the YouTube, it's not going to be seen by most of the community. But share it in our Facebook thread, and it will be seen by most of our community. And it's an open Facebook group, so know that it is public. So if it's a private story, please don't share it in any of our comment threads. You can send it to me privately if you like. But I welcome open sharing if possible, because we can all learn. And you can find our comments thread at for this episode, for this series, right? www.ourhighestwork.com/37. ourhighestwork.com/37. This is the 37th episode. And I look forward to your comments and your learnings, because I look forward to seeing what puzzle pieces you've gathered. All right, so let me go on to sharing with you a few of my puzzle pieces, and you can take it how you like it. See if it makes any sense to you. And I really want to explore these puzzle pieces by asking two questions. One question is a very basic one. Both are basic questions. One is, let me phrase it with, how do I determine what is true with a capital T about spirituality? I don't agree with people that say that it's all relative, because the very statement that it's all relative is an absolute statement. If you're declaring that it's all relative, well, then aren't you saying that you know the truth about reality, which is that it's all relative? Well, that's an absolute statement. So the irony of human language is, of spirituality, is that there are puzzle pieces. I think that's an easier way of saying it. So when people say it's all relative, then I say, well, actually, what you really mean is that the puzzle pieces are all meaningful. That we're not going to invalidate someone else's puzzle piece. We're not going to validate someone else's life experience to say, well, you're wrong. Well, how do we know that they're wrong? We haven't experienced their life. We haven't experienced their spiritual experiences. They say they've seen something, heard something, felt something. They say they have experienced some mystical thing. If we tell them they're wrong, how do we have the authority to tell someone that their experience is not correct or right? unless we somehow have lived in their body. So in that sense, it's relative, but once that person shares their experience, we can say, oh, wow, thank you for sharing that. I'm going to remember that that is a possibility of reality. And then I'm going to hear someone else's experience. I'm going to say, oh, wow, thank you for sharing with me that that's another possibility of reality. And as I hear more and more, I start to piece together the puzzle of what reality may be, right? So how do I determine what is true? So I actually have a mixture of 5 ways that I determine what's true. And I'm going to list these 5 ways in order of increasing importance. Now, I think all 5 are important, but I'll start with the less important, and then I'll go to the most important. So the first way I determine if something is true is logic. Logic. Does it make logical and rational sense to me? And this is what the quote we talked about today is, does it match my common sense, right? Is it logical? And logical, basically, one way I can tell is if I'm reading a book about spirituality and it is contradicting itself, then the 2 contradictory statements cannot form the same spiritual worldview, unless there's a higher way unless there's a higher concept that allows me to understand these 2 contradictory statements. So I'm not going to throw something out just because it's illogical, but I'm going to say that I don't quite understand or believe that right now, right? Because it's contradicting. It's contradicting either something that the same book has said or the same person has said, or it's contradicting something from my own life experience, right? So logic. Second way I determine is what I call, well, not what I call, the word is consilience. C-O-N-S-I-L-I-E-N-C-E, consilience. The idea of consilience, which you can Google and find out the definition, is that if an idea, if a worldview, if a concept about spirituality is confirmed by many, many sources, then, especially sources that I respect, then there's consilience. Then there is, it's more likely to be true. Okay, so for example, I'll give you an example. The golden rule, which is to do unto others what you want others to do unto you. Or the flip side of the other way to state the golden rule is don't cause a type of experience to other people that you wouldn't want someone to cause to you, right? That golden rule has strong consilience because just about every spiritual path in history has taught the golden rule in some way. You might say the law of reciprocity. Okay, don't do, if you do this to someone, you can expect that they'll do it back to you. So only do the things that you want people to do back to you, right? So that has strong consilience. Make sense? Another concept that has strong consilience is that consciousness survives the death of the physical body. Most spiritual paths and spiritual traditions say this. And so if they all say this, or most of them say this, then it has a higher likelihood of being true. Because if we say that, oh, most spiritual paths all say this, and it's false, that means we're invalidating billions of people in history that are wrong. You see what I mean? That all of them are wrong, that we know what's right, and all of them are wrong. Well, okay, let's hold our horses, and let's not be so brash. So that's why I say that consilience is important. Because it's not that they're all wrong, okay? It's that maybe there's a truth, there's a higher truth that can help us understand what they all believe, they all say that is true, that we don't yet understand. So I believe that humility is extremely important in spiritual development and spiritual learning because, again, you wouldn't want someone to invalidate your beliefs. Right? You wouldn't want someone to say, oh, what you just told me about spirituality is wrong. Well, wait a second, it's not. How do you consider it's wrong? Maybe you haven't seen a higher truth that can encompass what I've said so that you can understand it. Just say that, but don't say it's wrong. Okay, the third way I determine what is true. Again, I'm going in terms of increasing importance. So this is even more important than consilience, which is character. Character. I ask myself to get a sense of what is the ethics of the person, of the source that is teaching me this spirituality. If it's a teacher, do I respect the way that they are living? Are they virtuous? Are they humble, or are they prideful and living a lavish life? I really believe that there's a lot of spiritual teachers that profit from spirituality, profit from, I would say, profit in a way that I believe is more than is necessary for a good life. um, my current understanding. So I heard one spiritual teacher who was talking about this too, Andrew Harvey, and he was saying that there are a lot of spiritual authors who are really corporate whores. I know it's a very strong statement. I didn't say that, but Andrew Harvey did. And he's basically saying there are a lot of spiritual teachers and authors who are basically profiting off of what people want to hear. The law of abundance and all that stuff. I'm not saying law of abundance is true, but it's like, oh, God wants you to make as much money as you want to make, and be as comfortable as you want to be comfortable in this life. And you know what? From everything I've read about spirituality, all the schools of thought, I think that's a lower truth. I think there's the higher truth is that is only one level of development. That's not a, yes, the pursuit of riches, the pursuit of comfort, helps the soul to learn some discipline, because you've got to be disciplined to be rich. I should say, you've got to be disciplined to build a business that allows you to be rich. Okay, you've got to learn something about human relationships in order to manipulate other people, right? To make money to make lots and lots of money in a very short amount of time. So you've got to learn some things that are good for the soul, but I believe that's a lower level of development. Trying to get rich and trying to get famous and trying to get really comfortable and have a very lavish lifestyle, that's a level of development that's needed for some people, in my belief. Okay, in my belief. That's how I'm seeing the higher truth that encompasses what some people are doing. It's what they need at this time, so I'm not going to invalidate them. But there is a further path. So if they are starting to feel like something's wrong, I'm living this lavish life, but there's still an empty hole inside of me, something feels off, then I would say that there's a further path. And the further path is that this life is actually about the comfort of the physical body. This life is about the comfort of the spiritual body. It's about the excitement and adventure of the spiritual body, the soul. And anyway, so I tend to really respect the character of a teacher that has gone beyond the lavish riches, that has gone beyond teaching people how to make 6 or 7 figures. Okay, that has gone to saying, how can we live simply so that others can simply live? That's a really big one, actually. I've read somewhere else another spiritual book that says, the question was given by a student, teacher, how can I know if a spiritual teacher is true or not? And this teacher basically says, are they greedy or not? If they're greedy, if they are teaching for lots of money, be aware. Be aware that they might not be someone you want to follow. But if they're teaching in a humble way, whether or not they make lots of money, pay closer attention, because they're not in it for the money, right? So character. Another part of character is, there's 15 years ago, no, more than 15 years ago. Yeah, that's right. About 15 years ago, I spent about 2 weeks at an eco-village commune that was a spiritual community. It was run by, well, I'm not going to say who it was, but it was run by a very famous spiritual teacher who's written books, and I spent 2 weeks there. It was wonderful, actually. I learned a lot about organic farming while I was there. We had to do all the chores and things like that. But the spiritual teacher, even though he wrote wonderful books, when I actually got to experience the character of who he was in daily life, he didn't treat people very kindly. And that's another aspect of character. If a teacher isn't kind to others, isn't loving, doesn't make people doesn't this embody compassion, I also start to wonder if that's a teacher I want to follow, right? So I think humility and compassion are two of my big ones. So what about you? What aspects of character do you really respect? All right. So we talked about logic. We talked about consilience. We talked about character. Okay. Oh, one thing about logic, or sorry, one thing about character. Compare a couple of people. Okay. Compare a couple of spiritual teachers. One teacher knows it all. They are extremely smart. They've written lots of books. Their ideas are amazing. Okay. But their character is they're not. They don't seem to embody love and humility and all that good stuff. Okay, but they're really, really smart. They have all these frameworks and theories and ideas that are amazing. Compare another spiritual teacher who has had tons of spiritual experiences. They've had a Kundalini awakening. They are able to speak to spirit guides. They're able to produce, manifest, objects out of thin air, and yet they don't embody humility and spiritual and compassion. Compare a third teacher who says they don't know very much, but all they can do is they can show you a lot of love. And they're extremely loving towards you and kind and humble. They're courageous. They are faithful. They're disciplined. They're very generous and very grateful. The third teacher is the one I would want to follow. Even though they don't know a lot, they don't know a lot of concepts. They haven't had a lot of spiritual, mystical experiences. But they embody what I believe at this stage, truer spirituality is that it's embodied into the life. It's embodied. It's not just in the head, it's not just in the experiences, but it's embodied in the love that is shown to others. So that's my belief about character, and so that's the third way I know what is true. Okay. The fourth way that I know something is true, and this is getting to be even more important, maybe even more important than character, is results. Results of following a particular spiritual philosophy or spiritual worldview. And the difference between results and character is that character, you can be fooled. Someone can be really nice to you whenever you see them. When you go to a retreat, and the spiritual teacher is very, very nice to you, etc. Right? But their own life, the results of their life is a sham. They can't get along with their significant other. They can't get along with their kids. So results are, or I shouldn't say, not just the results of the teacher's life. Maybe that's more character, but the results of the students' lives. So the students of a spiritual path or worldview, are they living in a way that shows great character? That makes sense? So results is really about the character of the students who follow that worldview. And I find that that's even more important, because a teacher might just be a really nice guy, but is what they're teaching producing what the New Testament says are the spirits of the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, humility, faithfulness, discipline. Now I know that those weren't the exact words from the New Testament, but I believe to be good character. So results, okay? And number 5, the most important thing is conscience. Your conscience. I believe that you have spirit guides. Some people call them guardian angels. Some people call them spirit guides, that are constantly speaking to you. Some of us can hear them. Some of us can't. I am not one of those who can hear them or see them. The irony is, I'm one of those teachers who has never experienced any paranormal thing. And some people might judge me and say, well, you must not be very spiritually advanced, because the more spiritually advanced you get, the more mystical experiences, the more Kundalini awakenings, the more, the thinner the veil is for you. Okay, say whatever you want. But I I tend to believe, or at least am open-minded to all of it. I'm open-minded to UFOs. I'm open-minded. I'm not saying I believe in all of it. I'm open-minded. I'm like, it's possible. If lots of people are saying they've seen something, well, it's possible, right? I'm open-minded to all of it. I'm open-minded to, spirit guides and you name it. If lots of people have experienced it, I'm willing to consider it. But I myself have never had a paranormal experience. I've never seen a ghost, never seen a UFO, even though I want to. I said it wouldn't be cool if I could. Yeah, I've never seen anything. I've never heard a voice in my head that's not my own. Never seen or hear. Never had a spontaneous healing. Nothing. And yet I'm open-minded to all of it. And my belief about my life is that somehow I have a spiritual contract that I am not supposed to experience anything like that. In fact, I've actually I've actually paid for sessions with psychics just to see what's going to be like. What's it like? And I've actually won. I should say I've won, and I've won a couple of sessions with really well-renowned, well-rated psychics. They're not famous, but they're very well-rated by a particular institution. And you know what? After those sessions, I can't say whether they were really my dead grandmother was really coming through. I can't tell. And I've also paid for a between life regression, paid handsomely for that, and I came out of it with some good advice, but I couldn't tell if I was imagining it was really a between life, or it was just it was real, or just imagining it. So I believe that part of my life purpose is to not experience the thinning of the veil, as some people call it, the paranormal, and yet have the faith that that is possible, and yet go on to not have to see it to believe it, but to believe it and to live as if that were true, meaning to live the virtue. Because ultimately, if all that were true, all that, from what my studies have said, all the spirit guides, everything everyone's telling us, all the spirit guides and guardian angels and seances and mediumship, all the basic message of it all is to develop in virtues. And I believe that the less we're able to see and experience paranormal things, and yet live as if they were true, as if we don't live this one life, as if it's fine to give to someone else even though we don't know if they're going to return anything back to us, but to give out of a full heart. And to fill our hearts with the belief, the imagination, you might say, that love is all around us, that love is always being given to us, that all of our true needs are always going to be met by God, by our spirit guides, by our guardian angels. Through God, by God through our guardian angels. So that's my belief, is that I'm here to model, to demonstrate someone who can do their best to live that life without having to have experienced anything. And that's what I do. And so that's my conscience. That's what my conscience is telling me. And so I believe that your conscience is actually the connection, the moral, I should say, your conscience is the connection you have with your higher spirit guides. When you do something and you don't feel that it's quite right, I should say, well, it's either from old programming, and when people say old programming, I have to spend a minute on this. Even your parents, even though your parents and your authority figures in the earlier life, or earlier part of your life, yes, they weren't perfect. They might have damaged you in some ways. But they too were guided by their spirits, even though they don't realize it or don't believe in it. And they too had some good things to teach you. And your spirit guides have always been protecting you your whole life. And so your conscience is this extremely precious connection point, the connection line, the telephone line between you and your spirit guides. And so, yes, sometimes our conscience has been damaged a little bit, and the telephone line isn't very clear, the bandwidth isn't very good, but still some of it is true. And so I invite you to pray. I believe in prayer. The power of prayer is extremely powerful. It can't always be seen immediately, but you will see it over time. And if you pray for a clearer connection in your conscience to doing what is right for you, for your life purpose and path, that will become clear. And be open to it. And you'll learn also, right? Remember, results is another way we tell what is true. As you follow the voice of your conscience, see what the results are in your life. And again, remember that results aren't always immediate. But see the results of your heart. You do something that your conscience is telling you. Is your heart saying yes? Is your heart saying that was the right thing to do? And is your heart full? If your heart is full from doing something that your conscience is telling you, it's probably part of your life purpose to do. So, I think that is all I want to share today. I had a lot more, but I'm going to save that for the next session. And I really want to welcome your comments about the session. Share with me what you found helpful from this session. The website to go to again is www.ourhighestwork.com/37. And for those who are live and commenting, I just want to, I do see actually Barbara Freeman is here, and honored for Barbara to be here. She is she has a book coming out about spirituality. So but I've actually been working with Barbara in my coaching program, and be sure to check out what she's got for you. And her website is Wisdom Woman. Let me just double check. Wisdomwoman.weebly.com. Wisdomwoman, WISDOM, WOMAN. Wisdomwoman.weebly, WEEBLY.com. So check that out. Thank you, Barbara, for being live and commenting here today. So until our next episode, keep your thoughts positive, keep your heart open, and I wish you well.